What if I told you that the single greatest automotive innovator in history, the man who literally invented the modern assembly line and revolutionized manufacturing forever, was moments away from single-handedly destroying his own magnificent empire? That the very same stubbornness, the same unbreakable will that built an industrial revolution from the ground up, was now the same force that was systematically tearing it all down, brick by terrifying brick. This isn't just a story about a failed product launch or a victim of a bad economy. No! This is a much deeper, more psychological story about the dark side of genius. About one man's monumental, unshakable ego clashing with the unstoppable tide of progress. The year is 1927, and Henry Ford, the legendary man who put the entire world on wheels, is refusing to listen to anyone. He's holed up in his office, a prisoner of his own success, completely deaf to the warnings echoing through his own company. His beloved Model T, the machine that made him a god, the vehicle that defined a generation, is now a relic, a dinosaur, a beautiful artifact of a past that was rapidly disappearing. But Henry Ford refuses to see it. He's ignoring his most brilliant engineers. He's dismissing concerned reports from his dealerships. He's laughing off the competition, and he's even shutting out the desperate pleas of his own son and heir. While competitors like Chevrolet are soaring with new modern overhead valve engines and stylish, eye-catching designs, Ford is stubbornly, dangerously stuck in the past. This right here is the story of Ford's biggest and most costly mistake, a mistake of pride so colossal, so devastating. It would take a quiet, unsung hero working in the shadows to pull the entire company back from the very brink of total and absolute bankruptcy. The ultimate battle for the soul of Ford Motor Company is about to begin. To truly grasp the depth of this crisis, we must first transport ourselves back to the absolute peak of Ford's undisputed dominance. For nearly 2 incredible decades, the Model T wasn't just a car, it was a force of nature. It was cheap, it was brutally reliable, and it was absolutely everywhere, from the muddy farms in the Midwest to the bustling streets of New York. But that overwhelming success contained the seeds of its own destruction. Henry Ford's obsessive focus on efficiency and ruthlessly low cost came at a massive, hidden price. Complete and utter stagnation. He believed so wholly, so religiously, in the Model T's perfection that he began to see any change, any innovation, any update as a personal betrayal of its core, sacred principles. It was more than a car. It was his manifesto. Meanwhile, a strategic genius named Alfred Sloan at General Motors was executing a completely different, devastatingly effective idea. Planned obsolescence and a car for every person purpose. Chevrolet began offering cars in beautiful, vibrant colors other than basic black. They offered more powerful, smoother, quieter engine. They offered style, comfort, and most importantly, choice. And America loved it. Consumers, for the first time, had an alternative that appealed to their desires, not just their needs. Slowly, then all at once, Ford's market share began to evaporate like water on hot asphalt. The king of the entire auto industry was being peacefully dethroned in the showroom, not by a superior machine, but by a superior, more modern idea. And the king, in his ivory tower, refused to even acknowledge the rebellion, let alone surrender to it. Behind the heavily fortified walls of the Rouge plant, a desperate, silent rebellion was brewing. The unlikely leader of this coup? Henry's own, soft-spoken, aesthetically gifted son, Edsel Ford. While Henry saw only nuts and bolts, Edsel saw the future. He understood on a fundamental level that cars were rapidly becoming more than just mere transportation. They were moving art, statements of personal identity and style. He begged, he pleaded, he presented detailed market data to his father, arguing for a new car, for a modern engine, for anything to compete with the dazzling new models from GM. But Henry was an immovable object, a mountain of stubbornness. Their arguments behind closed doors became the stuff of corporate legend, an epic, Shakespearean clash of titans between the old world of pure utility and the new world of emotional appeal. The situation grew so desperate that key talented executives, seeing the writing on the wall, began fleeing the company, fearing its inevitable and spectacular crash. The entire industry watched in a mixture of shock and horror as the mighty Ford Motor Company teetered precariously on the edge of an abyss of its own making. The factory that had once been the gleaming marvel of modern efficiency was now a silent, rusting monument to one man's stubbornness. The cost of inaction in lost sales, lost talent, and lost prestige was mounting by the second, and the elegant, intelligent solution was sitting right in front of Henry, pleading with him. Only he would finally open his ears and listen to his own son.
The facts and details from this tumultuous era are absolutely staggering. Did you know that? To finally force his father's hand, Edsel Ford, in a move of incredible daring, secretly commissioned a team of designers to create a clay model of a completely new car working in a locked hidden corner of the factory away from Henry's prying eyes. He knew he had to present a tangible, finished vision, a rolling sculpture, not just an abstract idea on a piece of paper, to break through his father's resistance. Another almost unbelievable fact: when Henry Ford finally reluctantly was forced to concede and shut down all production of the Model T, he idled the entire massive River Rouge complex, the largest factory in the world, for a full agonizing 6 months. Nearly 60,000 workers were suddenly laid off, sent into an economic depression long before the rest of the country. The financial loss was astronomical, a hemorrhage of cash that would have killed a lesser company. But perhaps the most shocking fact of all: Henry Ford deeply resisted the development of the V8 engine until the very last possible moment, viewing the complex casting process for the single-block engine as an impossible, wasteful folly. The very thing that would later become the legendary thunderous heart of Ford's performance identity for decades was almost strangled in its crib. It was only through Edsel's relentless, patient persuasion and the brilliant work of engineers that the groundbreaking flathead V8 was ever approved. An engine that would ultimately save the company and define American automotive performance for an entire generation.
The legacy of this near-death experience, this self-inflicted crisis, fundamentally defines the soul of Ford to this very day. The brutal lessons learned from nearly bankrupting the entire company forged a new, permanent philosophy deep within its DNA: that innovation cannot and must not ever be stopped. That complacency is a cancer, and that listening to the customer is not a sign of weakness, but the ultimate key to survival. The resolution of this intense father-son war didn't just lead to a new car. It led directly to the brilliant Model A, and then crucially to the iconic V8-powered performance cars that would cement Ford's reputation for power and excitement forever. That hard-won spirit of necessary evolution, of adapting to survive and thrive, is the direct reason why we have the legendary Mustang, the unstoppable F-Series, and the cutting-edge GT. Ford learned, in the most painful way possible, that to lead, you cannot just shout, you must also listen. You cannot just build, you must also adapt. The staggering stubbornness of one brilliant man almost completely erased an industrial empire from the earth, but the clear-eyed vision and quiet courage of another saved it, and in doing so laid the essential groundwork for every thrilling, pulse-quickening Ford we know and love today. It's a permanent, powerful reminder etched into the history of business that the biggest risk of all is refusing to change.